specifically spoke a little bit more about Jared and his acquisition, but wanted to get together with you guys again to provide a little bit more insight about the free agency process and where we're at so far. I know it's still a lot of more work to do between now and free agency is still going on until the draft, but I like where we're at right now as a football team from a roster standpoint. But any question you guys may have, fire away.
Guys, I'm going to please ask one question each so we can get through everyone. Mike O'Hara, start us off.
Okay, Brad, thanks for doing this. I'm just wondering, you saw the trades last year, the big quarterback trades. I wonder, you look back and you had your deal done on January 30th. What was the advantage, if there was any, to getting that big chunk done so early so you could, I wouldn't say get it out of the way, but then focus on what else you had to do?
Yeah, that is a good question. Definitely wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we are aggressive and we weren't scared to set the market first and set it early. But it wasn't just intention, but that is one of the things that came about from it. But definitely just it spoke a lot of volumes about just it's an unprecedented amount of question marks at that position. And so with the options that were available at the time when it came to the trade standpoint, even with, Matthew, Jared, whoever it was, Carson ended up getting traded. So with all of that, I just felt like it got pretty aggressive and we weren't scared to, come out first and set the market.
All right. Thank you.
Dave?
Good morning, Brad. Hope you're doing well.
Good. How you doing?
Doing great. Just one real quick follow-up to what Mike had just asked. All the trade movement last week, obviously some of that was about quarterbacks, but what does that do to your vision for what you hope to accomplish at number 7 or what you think you can accomplish at number 7?
It doesn't really change, what our focus is and what our approach is and what our plan is. A lot of the things, I believe I mentioned it before, is it's very, very important to know the, I guess you say the quarterback, class, especially when it comes to the draft process. So, to have a very clear understanding of that position, things won't really surprise you really so much. So when you start seeing that movement kind of go around in front of you or whatever the case is, you're really not caught off guard. So not saying that I knew things were going to happen, but when they happen and when they unfold, you're really not caught off guard. But it doesn't change really our approach in terms of what our plans are.
Do you think it allows a different caliber of player to get to you, or take a quarterback out of the picture for you, or anything like that more tangible that it does?
No, I don't think it really changes. It's still the same. It's the same set of guys that still are in that, like what I've talked about before. When you're picking in the top 10, you have to know all those players that are deserving of that high of selection. So it doesn't change that approach in terms of from the players that we've been discussing and, may be there, may not be there.
The other thing I wanted to ask, just why did you decide against making Kenny Galladay a building block for, this program for the future?
Well, with Kenny, always stated that very, very talented receiver, but we pretty much knew that, as with pretty much every year in terms of free agency and the draft, that it's relatively deep. In both spots. And, it was a few different factors that went into it. But, at the end of the day, it was just, making the right decision for the Lions, both not only short term, but more importantly, long term. So that was a decision that we came to, but wish Kenny nothing but the best in New York and was happy to see that he got a good deal.
Great. Thank you.
John?
Hey, Brad, good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. I'm just wondering, at this point in your first draft evaluation process with Detroit, if you guys target a player that fills a need, has a strong talent that you guys see on film, but there's maybe character concerns or a past history, would that exclude that player from being selected by the Lions?
I always say when it comes to character concerns, it's always case by case. It's stuff. I always say that gathering character is one of the hardest things, when it comes to, from an evaluation, the talent aspect, that's probably the easiest part. But when you got human beings evaluating other human beings' intangibles, there's a lot that goes into it. So what you might hear about on the surface or what you might read about may not really be the absolute truth. And even, with myself and our personnel department, as we dig into these guys, sometimes on the surface, it may seem like, man, I don't know, but then you start, getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you kind of see like, actually it's not what we initially thought, or there was a lot of different moving parts that may have led to that headline of what the initial concern was. But so it definitely, it plays a part, but we just take them all case by case.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Ben?
Appreciate the time. Just curious, you added a decent amount of speed to the receiver room in free agency. Curious how quickly y'all identified that as something you wanted for the room, and either if that was playing into Jared's strength at quarterback or the depth of this year's class.
Yeah, that's a great question. So going into it, obviously you want to get faster. That's across the board. And, obviously knew that the receiver group in general was thin when we first started this process. So as we're kind of adding, it's like, let's just add speed, and it's not just, just look for guys that just have speed and that's it. But, pretty much all the guys that we acquired, starting with Tyrell, he does have speed, that's an added benefit, but he's long, he can adjust very, very well. He has aggressive hands. He attacks the football out of the air. And then plus he's got the speed to stretch it deep, obviously. And then even with the most recent with Ratley, John Dorsey had him in Cleveland, and when he became available, then Dorsey and I spoke about it, and he was another good add, in terms of we had brought him in and had a slight bit of a workout, and was able to show that he still has his speed, and so he was a good piece to add. And even with Brashad. A great story on Brashad, right? So on Perriman, he when he came out in the draft, he didn't run his 40 at the combine for whatever reason. I can't remember. He was like a medical exclusion. And so we all were at the pro day and basically all to see him. It was like pretty much the whole league, all these head coaches and GMs and everybody. So Perriman runs, and for some reason, he ran last after everybody. And so he gets down, and you're supposed to usually hold it for like a 3 count, but he goes, and as soon as he puts his hand on the line, he just jumps and goes. And usually everybody stops the guy. Everyone's like, whoa, 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 but nobody stopped him because I guess everybody's kind of like nervous. It's like, oh, man, this is the guy we kind of came down to see. And so he's hauling ass down there, and you can feel the speed, and he crosses, but because he quick started, everybody had the clock, and everybody had like 4-1 something because he quick started. So everybody had like 4-1-7, 4-1-5, and we was like, holy smokes. But then we knew that he quick started, but Brashad heard about those 4-1s. And so once he heard about it, he was just like, we tried to get him to run another one. And he was like, no, that's it. I'm not going to run another one, which I really couldn't blame him. But eventually, we kind of talked him into him running another one, and he did, and got down. And sure enough, it was a legitimate 4.25, probably the fastest guy his size that I've seen running a 40. But, just another element of him being able to take the top off the defense and have that element. And then with Jared, I do believe that will help Jared. I'm sure Jared won't have any frowns about having this much speed, in the receiver room. So definitely I believe in Jared with his ability on the deep ball. And he showcased it explosive. His explosive plays in the past 4 years, explosive passes have been up there. So I think it'll be a good combination.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Stoney?
Yeah, Brad, did you have any discussions about sign and trade with Kenny Galladay? And in that vein, why doesn't that happen a lot in football where it happens in the NBA all the time?
Yeah, we did discuss it, and we mulled over it. Guys, I wasn't joking when I said he was at the forefront. He was at the forefront of my mind, throughout the whole process. But we did discuss those options, and then just, there is some difficulty in terms of forecasting that's involved. And so that's kind of why, you probably may see it more prevalent in the NBA versus the NFL, but it is possible you can do it. But again, with how the market was shaping out with the depth, both in free agency and in the draft, then we just felt to go the route of just not tagging him.
And did you get any phone calls Friday about all the other trades? Anybody, they went up to 6. Did you get any calls for 7?
No, I can't say that that my phone was blowing up. But obviously have had discussions with different teams, but I can't say just on Friday that my phone was blowing up.
Thank you.
Justin?
Brad, good morning.
Morning.
We see a lot of the moves that you're making here in free agency, and they all make sense. But one position that's still relatively thin is cornerback, and I guess you can extend that to the entire secondary when you look at, I guess, the general youth of that position. So I'm wondering what your, I guess, sense of urgency is to add veteran depth there. Or are you confident with going, into the season with a potentially, young and somewhat inexperienced group?
Yeah, the corner position, and I could say with more than just the corner positions, is a position that we'll continue to address, now throughout the entire process, through up into the draft, and even after the draft, if need be. But it's definitely a position that is not going to be overlooked or ignored. It is a young group that we have now. I really like the group that we have in terms of the youth and the upside. The coaching staff that we have on board, starting with Aubrey Pleasant, Aaron Glenn, I do think that those guys will help those young kids tremendously in their development. But that is a position that we'll continue to look to address now and through the draft.
Guys, we've got time for 2 more. Eric, go ahead.
What's up, Brad? I'm Eric Weir from ESPN, man. How you doing?
Hey, Eric. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. A question for you, man, is speaking to a lot of Lions supporters and lifelong, fans over the years, it seems like it's just a lot of optimism. Like, guys really don't know what to expect with the squad. You look at free agency and going into this draft, do you think, I know you guys have spoke about an identity. Do you think you guys accomplish what you want to do as far as personality rise? And just with this being your first year going into the draft and everything you're doing, is it a sense of pressure to get it right? I mean, this first time around, you only get one chance to make a first impression. So just that pressure and just the identity of the squad.
Yeah. Well, first, definitely to get it right that is the main goal. And that's what you starting off with the fan base. And, I've always said that One Pride deserves the best and deserves the number one product that we can serve. So it is a service role. So that is the main goal. But I would say we have stuck to a plan that Dan and I had in place, and the players that we identified and that we've selected, they've all been very intentional in terms of having the right makeup and meeting the standards that we've been looking for, rather going through a lot of different avenues, whether it's, player that has grit about them, that, has a chip on their shoulder, has something to prove. We talked about the speed element at the receiver room. I mean, stuff like that. So we've been very, very intentional, and we've stuck to the plan that we've had in place, and it's coming together so far pretty nicely, in my opinion. But I can't say that I'm feeling pressure to, being it's just my first year. It's just good that Dan has been awesome to work with, and we have others that have played integral role with, Ray Agnew. He's been huge in his pro personnel background, and John Dorsey has been huge in his experience, as, prior, team building and being a GM. And, even, you look at guys that we've added like Tim Boyle, from Green Bay, a lot of credit goes to Lance Newmark, our director of player personnel. He's a guy that, had Tim identified early in the process. So it's been a collective effort. It's been a collaborative approach, but we're just going to keep sticking to the plan, and, hopefully we can bring that product that One Pride deserves.
Appreciate it, man. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. Last question for Kyle.
Hey, Brad. Morning. Thanks for your time. I know you've got a couple of questions already on the trade stuff. I got just one more, I guess. But you've said you want to be aggressive with the pick, and that's kind of your approach. And I'm curious how that process works going into the draft. How much of a foundation do you build talking to other teams about what, the interest level, gauging the interest level for that pick, and have those conversations started yet?
I want to make sure I answer your question clearly. You're saying that are we trying to build interest in the pick, or making sure that we are aggressive with who we pick?
With trading your pick, I'm just kind of curious what legwork you do going into draft night, and whether that process has already begun. If you've been able to get a sense whether there might be a market for that pick. That we do our work that we do, and make sure that we can do as much as we can in terms of making sure that we're aware of what's behind us, what's in front of us. Like I was saying earlier about knowing the QB class, regardless of your circumstance, that all helps kind of make a better prediction or forecast, but. It's not about the whole intent, and I can't really say any intent at all in terms of making sure that we have value to trade our pick. Again, there's players that we feel really, really good about that, staying at where we currently are, that we feel comfortable with selecting. That's not the sole focus in terms of that, but, you got to just be prepared for everything. And so we kind of do our work in making sure that we're best prepared as possible in terms of what may happen for the teams behind us or in front of us. Thank you, Brad.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Guys, we're going to have Dan on the same computer, so just bear with us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We're good to go.
Okay. Let me get this thing set up. All right. So good to see all of you. Shoot, man, let's go ahead and just fire away with questions.
Brad Galley, you can start us off.
Dan, and trying to acquire free agents, trying to acquire players, and throughout the trade process with Jared and others, a lot of guys in the NFL, you've been around the league long enough, want to be around veteran programs, a coach that's been around and in the same job for a long time. But there's also advantages, I imagine, to being a first-time, full-time head coach. Did you see advantages in trying to talk to guys? Because a lot of them told us that you were a big part of why they wanted to play for the Lions.
You kind of broke up at the beginning of that, or you're just talking about the free agents. And
yeah, just the differences between a free agent wanting to go play for a veteran guy and then a new first-time head coach like yourself. Why did guys, in your eyes, see you as an advantage to joining the Lions?
Well, I think, look, I think we've tried to create a narrative here of what we're trying to build and what we want to do, and so I think they do their homework too. These players do their homework, and so they've got contacts, mutual contacts. They've got coaches that know coaches. They've got players that have played under those coaches. And so I think just a combination of what we've begun to build here, the vibe that is being that I think people are starting to catch up on a little bit here. And then, I think that's where my staff and myself, I feel like we can kind of gain an advantage or have a little bit. And so that's encouraging. That's what you want. All these guys we've signed, salary aside, they're fired up to be here. I mean, it's a genuine excitement. And look, you can call it. There's a little bit of a leap of faith in their part, and shoot, man, we appreciate that. But it kind of tells us that we feel like we're going in the right direction.
Stoney.
Yeah, Dan, a lot of people have been talking about Kyle Pitts, the tight end history in this town with the drafts. Is he a tight end, or is he a wide receiver, or is he some hybrid that you can come up with your own name for? And how different is he than when you played tight end?
Yeah, well, you tell me. You guys know better than that. You already know that answer. Yeah, he's a different bird than what a traditional tight end has been, or certainly has been when I played. But look, he's one of those guys that, I mean, he's talented. But there's a number of guys up there that are talented, man. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks that are up there, you look at the receivers, you look at him, you look at the tackle, man, there's a number of guys that you'd be fired up to have one way or another.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dave.
Hey, Dan, good to see you as always. Real quick housekeeping item before I ask you my question, but Vaitai, what's your vision for him on the offensive line? Is he guard, tackle? What do you see him as?
Yeah, look, I would say, the most obvious answer to that question to start, Dave, without alluding, would be that until we get our eyes on him and see kind of where we feel like he fits best, it's hard to just put that in stone. But I will say this, and we've talked to him about it, we're a little intrigued about moving him inside to guard. That does intrigue us. And so we may, as a starting point, kind of work there and see where we're at. But we've got enough guys on this roster to where, between he and Crosby and Nelson, and you kind of let them fight it out a little bit and just see what comes out, who fits best where. And there again, that's tentatively right now before we've done anything else pre-agency or in the draft. So, but I would say the thought of moving him inside would intrigue us a little bit.
And you kind of led into my second question, because you're not going to maybe get eyes on him for a while. I don't think anything's been decided about the off seasons, but typically new coaches get, extra time with guys, an extra mini camp, whatever it is, hands-on at least. What sort of challenge is it for you as a new coach with so much to install, not having that time? And how do you go about making up for it if you do not have that extra mini camp, some of the other things that you might in a normal offseason?
Yeah. Look, here's the beauty of it. Everybody in the league has to fall under the same rules. So that's the bright side to all this, is like, okay, well, we're all kind of the same in that regard. And so, we are new, but yet I kind of think of it like this too. When all this was going down last year, we kind of felt like one of the advantages at New Orleans was that we had a veteran group that had worked together. Our offense, our defense, special teams we were schematically the same. There was really nothing new. And so we kind of felt like we had an advantage not having an off season, but yet I would tell you, we got off to a slow start, and, we were 1-3. It dropped 2 in a row before I felt like we woke up and got our rhythm a little bit. So, I'm not that concerned about it, honestly. If there was a concern, it would be strength and conditioning, that part of it, and your guys working together a little bit. But if that's the case, you give them a plan and you keep tabs on them, make sure they're staying on top of what they got to do. But listen, man, that's not going to be, we're not going to use that as an excuse for us. I mean, if we can't start till training camp, then you know what? We'll be ready to go and we'll hit the ground running and we'll get what we need to get out of it and adapt as fast as possible.
Thank you.
Yep.
John.
Hey, Dan, good afternoon.
Hey.
I'm just wondering what excites you about the free agent class that has been brought in, and what areas do you feel what more work needs to get done before the draft?
Man, well, golly, there's a number of areas, to be honest with you, John. I mean, I'm really excited about this class. We all are. And there again, Brad and I went in with kind of the vision of it's everything we've said at the beginning is how do we bring in the guys that can help us as players, but they help us with the culture as well, but also the right mix of the type of player we bring in. And so these guys have not affected our future, but yet they bring in kind of a tone. They set a tone for us, and we feel like they bring the ability to give us competition, you know, with what we already have on this roster. But, you know, I thought it was important that we brought in guys that there again, we somehow have a relationship with, or that we know somewhat intimately, because you know what those guys are about, you know, and you grade the tape and yep, they can still do it. They have there's a role that they have, but I do feel like we've got the right mix of, you know, guys that are dynamic players. We got role players, we got leaders, we got, you know, man, we got workhorses. So I just feel like it's a good balance of people. And here's probably, this is what I'm most proud of, because I think this is important. I really do. And I do think the relationship side of this, when you've had coaches that understand who these players are, or GM, assistant GM, but there's just a number of guys here. I mean, when you look at Josh Hill and Alex Anzalone, my relationship and AG's relationship, you know, that means something. We know what this guy is. You know, talking about Brockers and golf. I mean, Brad, the insight that Brad and Ray had was huge. You know, they started kind of this process, you know, and they had a hand in it. And so, you know, you look at Tim Boyle, dude, Lance Newmark was the one who really got us going on Tim. Like, man, we need to check this guy out. And so then it really, look, all of these scouts look at him. Ray, Brad, they all knew who he was, but Lance is the one who kind of got us going in that direction to where we really focused our area. Let's look at it. Let's see what we think this guy can become. And that's one of the biggest reasons why he's here. You know, Damian Ratley, that was John Dorsey. He drafted him. He knew him well. Tyrell Williams, that was Ray Agnew. He kind of was like, look, man, you need to check this guy out. You know, he's coming off injury, but, you know, this guy's got some juice. I think we can get him. You know, Rashad Perryman, that was Antoine Randall, had him in Tampa, knew everything that he was about, knew what he could do, maybe what he's not as great at. But those I thought were just important. Those are just a couple of the guys that, you know, that you think of that, man, that's a team effort. That's all of us working together, because that was kind of the vision. Where do we find these guys that maybe are a little bit off the radar, if you will, but we know they got some juice and they can play and they can help us. And man, I'm fired up about those guys. Then you talk about Jamal Williams. I mean, the fact that Jamal, he's in this division, we know him well, but we get to play Green Bay twice, and the energy and the style of play that he brings, man, he energizes your offense. He energizes your team. You know, that was important for us. That was important for me. I think you got to have a halfback that can energize your offense. We love Swift. We think Swift's going to grow into something pretty special, but you got to have another back. And this guy will bring an element that we need, you know? So, you know, I can go down through this list. I mean, Damian Ratley, man, you know, he's another one Khalif Raymond, you know, the dual returner that we've got. We think he can play some slot. We think he can work outside a little bit. He brings some versatility, but he's just, man, he wants to go to work. And then I'm probably answering a ton of questions y'all were going to already ask, but since I'm rolling here, probably the best thing about all of these guys we've signed is I think they all got something to prove, and they got a little bit of chip on their shoulder, whether it's I'm coming off an injury, or, you know, they were trying to reduce my salary, or I'm a guy that they didn't want anymore, or I'm a guy who they think is washed up, or, man, all these guys have something to prove. And, man, so do we. I mean, Brad's got something to prove. I got something to prove. My staff has something to prove. I mean, everything we've kind of done, Sheila's got something to prove. It's been a little bit unorthodox, I guess you could call it, but that's a good thing, man. We want hungry people here that want to be here. They all wanted to be here and want to win.
Thanks. And then real fast, anything more you'd like to do ahead of the draft in terms of free agency, in terms of shoring up a position or anything like that? Thank you.
You know, we're not, doesn't mean that there's not things that we're not going to look at or want to do, but I don't think we're in any hurry to do anything before the draft.
Chris Burke.
Hey, Dan, good to see you again. just wanted to follow up on that comment you made about all the signings so far really not affecting the future. I guess how difficult or what's the pitch to these guys? Are you seeing any of these possible signings as people who could play their way into being 4, 5, 6-year pieces here? Or are you telling them, come help us get this thing established and then, go make your money in a couple of years?
Yeah, I think to answer that question, the way it's presented as it's opportunity. It's opportunity. Everybody understands where the salary caps are right now. And so, look, if you're a guy who is looking for a 1-year deal anyway, and then see what happens next year, I mean, this is as good a place as any, just with the way we're set up and where we're trying to go and the depth of our roster. And so I think it's been presented just like that. I mean, we've told everybody straight up, you come in here and you compete, and you compete, you win a job, then you start. And if you start and you play pretty well, you're probably taking even more reps than you would have. And then that production at the end of the year, nothing says we don't re-sign you. I mean, or you know what? Kudos to you, man. Somebody's going to pay you a lot of money and you move on, and we wish you well. But it gives us options. And so we haven't promised anybody anything. It's opportunity.
Eric?
Hey, what's up, Dan? How you doing? I'm Eric Woodard from ESPN.
What's up, man?
Pretty good, man. You kind of talked about, building that culture and tradition. You look at sports across Michigan and guys are striving for, they're just striving for success. You talked about direction and building that and the guys you tried to get. Is there a sense of pressure just to get this right? I mean, I asked Brad this as well, but, going into the draft and making these moves with your first, you only get one time to make a first impression. Is there a sense of pressure or is that motivation to get it right in the draft and come out just with a bang at all? Like, how are you approaching this draft?
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't look at this year as we don't feel like we've got a free pass now. And I think there's pressure, but that pressure is what drives you. That's why we're in this business. That's why I'm in this business. I mean, we're one of 32 teams. This is some of the greatest athletes that there are on the earth, man. And this is one of the greatest games that you can imagine. And so, look, I'm one of 32 sitting in this seat. And so my job is to figure out how can we win with what we add on this roster right now, or what's here, whatever Brad comes up with us collectively. That's my job. So that's what I'm charged with. And I accept that. I'm competitive. We're all competitive. And so, yeah, there is pressure. And that pressure it drives me. It drives our staff. It drives everybody. I mean, we're not going into this thing to say, well, we're a little deficient in this area and this. No, man, we're going to add what we think we can to be competitive. And then our job is to find a way to win games. And more importantly, look, winning is the result of all of it, but we have to go in and think we have to be better week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3. And by the time you hit week 16, we need to be a much improved team. And you'd like to think that always equates into wins. But the most important thing is to improve and let the process take care of itself.
All right, time for 3 more quick ones. Kyle, go ahead.
Dan, good to see you. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on your linebackers and where you believe that room is, and also what you view as the need at that position going forward.
Yeah, look, I like what we've got going on. Jamie is a versatile guy. He really gives us a guy that can do a little bit of everything. I mean, he can cover, he can rush, he can play in the stack, he can be a green dot, which, making all the calls. He does give us versatility in that regard. When you add Anzalone to that, we know what he is. He's an athletic, big, long linebacker that can run. He's a smart guy. He's a steady guy. And then, just the addition of Maven, man, that guy there again, we were excited to get him back because we know what he can do from a special teams, a level on special teams for us. He's really a 4-core guy. He plays hard. He's smart. You can watch him on tape. I mean, we went back and watched him in 2019 when he played, at linebacker, quite a bit. And so, he comes in, there's no telling. You never know what you may have in this player. We're going to there again, we haven't told anybody anything other than opportunity. So he comes in here, we'll give him a chance to compete. I mean, Sean Dion Hamilton, it's another one that that was really claimed off waivers when I got here. I mean, that was done before we even got here, but I think he's a pleasant surprise to have on this roster. You know, I know he can play special teams, but let him get in there and mix it up. Obviously, we've got Tavai. He's another one that was, you know, part of this draft class a couple of years ago. And so, you know, we'll see where these guys lay out and how they do. But, you know, does that mean we're done? No, it doesn't mean we're done. And I've said it all along. You'd like to go into this draft and not draft off need. You'd like to draft all best player available, or the guy that when you're sitting there and it's your pick, man, do we all love this guy? And where does he fit? What's the role? What's the vision? But I would say signing Anzalone's a step in the right direction.
Just a real quick follow-up, if I may. You know, with Reeves-Maben, it sounds like you're pretty high on him. He hasn't played much defense the past couple of years. What did you see on that tape in his game that gives you the belief that he can contribute defensively?
His effort and the fact that he's a smart player. I would say those two things stood out.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Justin?
Hey, Dan, I want to stick with a little bit of a theme here with some of the things you've hit on. A lot of these deals are 1 year, and you're trying to establish a culture. I'm just wondering what difficulties you envision, if any at all, with just some of the maybe long-term continuity as you're trying to build this thing at the beginning.
Yeah, I got you, because I know where you're going with that. So you get these 1 year guys, you build off of 1 year guys, and then they're gone, and then what do you do, right? I get that. I think the ultimate vision would be, even at the very least, you bring in these guys, and let's just say they are all 1 year, all right, hypothetically. Well, even there, you get the production out of them, but you get this kind of this work mentality, this chip on your shoulder. This is how you win. This is how you build things. And they've installed that in some of these young players that are already here on this roster, and then the guys that you're drafting. I think that at a minimum is what you're looking for out of these guys, you know, because you know, some of those guys you're around, I just know this as a rookie player, even if they were only there for a year, but man, they did things the right way and they helped you. Those are lessons you never lose or you never forget. And you also have those relationships for the rest of your time, probably the rest of your life. And so I just think even at that, man, it just helps set the tone for where you're trying to go and the way things are supposed to be done. And not only that, they appreciate the way that they've been treated, even if they do move on, because they know they were never lied to. They were told exactly what they were thought of, what we thought of them, and where they go. And that's all you can ask for. You may not always like to be heard the truth one way or another, but you can always respect the truth.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Last question for John Neo.
Hey, Dan, I'm wondering with the pre-draft process, the virtual pre-draft process, how deep do you personally go on kind of figuring out who these guys really are? How hard is it? And then I guess along those lines too, with the opt-out guys, how does that affect the way you guys view a guy?
Yeah, I think that we honestly try to evaluate these guys off of the tape. And of course you take their character into account. And I would say, as it pertains to personally, I try to, if our scouts do a great job, and the coaches, of just kind of digging into who they are, what we think they are. But then, you know, we've done a number of these Zooms, and so I try to pop on some of these Zooms. You know, I've been involved in the draft meetings with Brad and Ray and John and Lance and those guys, and so Sears. And so I just try to evenly spread my time through there between those and then popping in on Zooms, and then, you know, I'll call people that I know, to try to see if I could dig out any extra on the kid's character or what he is. And so I would say I'm certainly active in regards to that. I want to be involved in it, and I want to hear the input. And if we don't have, if there are still question marks, then I try to get involved and see what I can figure out as well, you know, because there again, I feel like all of this is about us working together. And so if one of us can gain information that maybe somebody else can't, that's what we're trying to do. But as far as evaluating a guy that, yeah, there's a little bit of, he didn't play his senior year, but yet, man, you're still grading off the tape. And maybe there's a tick more projection, but, look, I mentioned this, I guess it was last week. I kind of like grading off the tape. The numbers will come out when they come out, but to be able to judge what is this guy like as a football player? What does he look? How does he bend? How does he move? Does he have twitch? Does he have explosiveness? What's his length? Does he have a high motor? Is he a finisher? Man, those things, that stands the test of time. How does a guy look on tape, and how is he as a football player?
All right. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.